How's it going, lazy braces? I'm Bobby Sixkilla. Welcome back to the Divine Deception. As far as I'm aware, this is going to be the last chapter of the game. Like I said, unless some new stack pops up after we're done with all these ones. But as it stands, we have the last chapter of Thane's story to go, and that's it. And we kind of have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen in this chapter anyway. But I'd like to see it through and see if something pops up afterwards, so I guess we'll find out. Let's go. I guess we're going to find out about that lady who's giving us the scoop in between chapters as well, right? Anyway, let's jump in. House Edge. God damn it. Why could timing never work out in my favour? That probably wasn't fair. I was likely experiencing survivorship bias in action. If I were to take a hard look at everything up until this point, you'd probably find that I lucked out a number of times. But then again, I know you find just as many times where random happenstances screwed me over. So I think I've permitted a bit of grumbling. Normally, I make time for keeping up the Thane act. I'd done so up until now, with surprising ease in fact. I hadn't really interfered with my other activities yet. But this was different. Today was important. I needed to be something. And in all likelihood, I had to be there soon. So of course, now when I had a strict deadline, he even called me over for an official duet business discussion. 3 guesses as to what it was about. Again, the temptation to just ditch was present, but at the same time, I still needed to appear as Thane one more time for things to work out. I guess this would have to be the time. Normally, I'd be excited for this opportunity. It had come about naturally, but not now. Not today. I shook my head. Oh well. I had to play the cards dealt. I just get it. Have the conversation, get out. With that assurance made, I entered the V-Hall. Thane, is the password really necessary every time? It's exceedingly annoying. Well, you know, policy and all. The thug trailed off. Fine, speak the dead, yada yada. Without finishing the quote, I just walked on through. I thought I might run into a bit of resistance on this. I felt wrong. So was the power of Thane. To be honest, I should have been abusing this a bit more in the past. Oh well. Might as well still make the most of it while I had it. As I entered the V-Hall, I noticed it being visibly more crowded than usual. What was this about? There wasn't an official meeting of any sort going on. With a bit more observation, however, I came to the realization about the current state of things. This is a party. Or half of one anyways. Party might be too strong, but definitely a celebration. Lara had a lot of her supporters here to cheer on her triumphant return, having successfully pilfered a boatload of cash from Olimpo. Given the tone of everything, I had to assume that went well with Marta. At the same time, I also saw a number of Yi supporters around. A small number to be sure. They're definitely people who I wouldn't peg coming around to celebrate Lara. If I had to guess, this is Yi also rallying the troops. For whatever reason, I could think of a few, Yi decided it wasn't a good idea to have the place packed with Lara supporters while he was on his lonesome. Given recent events, I couldn't imagine Yi was feeling good. And as I noticed him making his way over to me, I confirmed that theory. His expression was restrained, and he was good at that. Probably poor optics if we went around scowling at the duets and had made a ton of cash. But I'd been around Yi long enough at this point to tell. He was pissed, and with that angry emotion bottled in his heart, he made his way over to me, the person who had freed Lara. Great. Thane. Yi, what's the occasion? Oh, did you not hear? Lara was able to sign away her claim to the inheritance for a lot of money. The duets are now a significant bit richer. Marduk is happy and Lara's supporters are celebrating. Oh indeed. That's not good. Astute observation, Thane. I can always count on you for accurate colour commentary. Yi reached into his pocket, found a cigarette and lit it. After a long inhale, Yi shook his head. Things are bad, Thane. Quite bad. We're approaching end times. Time destroys the false opinions, but he confirms judgments of nature. Know that one? I thought for a bit, then I just shook my head. Marcus Tullius Cicero. Nice little piece of comfort most of the time. Most of the time? This outcome itself might be the effect of time, false opinions being destroyed, nature's judgment. What are you saying? Yi shrugged. Perhaps this is for the best. You can't be serious. After everything, this is how you react? Yes, Thane. After everything. So many things. I'm starting to feel old. We've done so much to make sure that Lara winds up the loser, and even after an opportunity fell into our laps, we still end up a day late and $1 short. At some point you have to wonder, what if that's the point? You can't be saying what I think you're saying. Rousseau had a point, you know. All forms of governance, gangs included, derive their sovereignty from the constant of the governed. If the majority of Duat members hold Lara in a positive light, then perhaps Regardless of actual qualifications, that grants her moral authority. Moral authority? The winner is right. It's the mandate of heaven. We could both run around tiring ourselves out trying to cling on to something we never truly had. We can face facts, understanding the shifting sides, and properly orient ourselves for a duet life under Lara. He finished his cigarette, then he tossed it to the ground and smushed it with his foot. Fuck that. Yeah, no fucking way that's happening. I'd choose death before kowtowing to that bitch. Lara's a dipshit, and so is Rousseau and Locke. Democracy's got nothing to do with being a good leader. Common opinion leads to common denominator opinions. The duet headship should fall to who deserves it the most. That's one of us, and we'll prove it here and now. Glad you got that out of your system. It was weird seeing you like that. He shrugged. What can I say? I'm a strong proponent of frequent self-introspection. It's the only way to truly know where you stand. I just nodded at this, not fully getting what he meant. Jeez, even after I said all that, it's not like I've got a good idea on how to actually go about changing things. We were so close, so fucking close. Had Lara tied up and everything. You think Marduk would have gone for killing her there and then? I felt like that's where it was leaning before the lights went out. I'm entirely sure that Lara had just stayed put. This matter would be behind us. True. How did Lara get out of that again? He was looking at me, a bit of edge in his eyes. I was hoping not to relitigate this. It's true, I let myself out when freeing Lara. Plausible deniability. I gave my story back after Lara escaped, and people believed it well enough. But it was definitely a little odd. He was pretty sharp. Maybe it was paranoia talking, but I was worried that he might have an inkling that something was wrong with us. I already told you. Several times. I know. Indulge me. I feel like I do so too often. But fine. It's not as though there's much to tell. One of Lara's supporters went off and cut the power, creating a temporary darkness. Lara used the opportunity to cut her ropes with some bladed instruments she had hidden on her. A knife, perhaps. She got free. She swung wildly, hitting Zauchi in the gut. Then she ran for the door. Since I was very close to her when she broke free, I gave chase. I was right behind her, but she remained slightly out of reach. Even once she got outside, I wasn't able to catch up to her. Eventually, I had no choice but to let her get away. So you see, that's the bit that always trips me out. She had told me that, from what he could see, you were right next to her by the time you got to the door. How did she put so much distance on you? You're a pretty athletic dude, if I do say so myself. Feels weird that Lara, of all people, could outrun you. When will you quit underestimating her? She is a threat. Yeah, but a physical one? I don't know what to say. She's just a better sprinter than I gave her credit for. His arms were crossed. I could tell by his glare that he suspected something. I don't know what. I think he didn't know what either. But he smelled blood in the water, as he had done a number of times with our interactions. In other circumstances, this could be a problem. However, it seemed as though Yi would forcibly dismiss this cloud of suspicion. It's not like he had much of a choice otherwise. And he couldn't fathom a reason as to why I'd be lying about this. So in the end, he decided to let it go. Yeah. Don't mean to blame you, just frustrated. Believe me, nobody's more frustrated at me than myself. I can imagine. Anyway, on the plus side, at least we got to see Marduk in a bit of action again. Punishing those supporters who cut the lights. Boy, that was a real show. A real show, alright. Thought I might get sick. Still, I had to stay around. Didn't want one of them rating me out. And indeed, it looked like at one point, one of them was going to mention my involvement. A single finger of mine put to my mask took care of that. Sure is a penchant for torture. Oh well, point is, at least there's a bit of morale hit there for the Lara side. Who knows what would have happened to them had Lara not proven herself the whole bringing a ton of cash thing. Nothing pleasant, I can imagine. Yep. But then Lara had to go and throw a wrench in our plans. Classic Lara. Is it? Is it not? When you say Lara throwing a wrench in our plans is classic Lara, it makes it sound like she throws in a wrench in most of our plans. That is to say that we're incompetent. Well, damn. You got me there. Okay, point is, somehow Lara fleeced a ton of cash from the Deismans. Don't ask me how she did that. It was totally out of her wheelhouse, but whatever. Somehow she made it happen. And somehow she made Art call off the hit. He doesn't seem particularly happy about any of this, but not actively angry. That's a win for Lara. I just nodded. Honestly though, I don't give a shit how Art feels. Neither does anyone else. The problem's Marduk. He seems thoroughly impressed by how Lara handled the situation in all respects. I mean, the biggest mark against her was her inability to bring in cash. Now she's brought in cash. And like, it's kind of bullshit because it's not like you can count on being willed a ton of shares by bazillionaires as a reliable source of income, but Marduk tends to gloss over details like that. He just sees money and likes it. Real irritating. Marduk often fails to see the bigger picture. Geez, you're telling me. And you know what's worse? I was talking with Lara earlier. The way she was talking, it sounds like she knows that we've been doing with the Manji. Seriously? I mean, she didn't make it explicit, but the implication was there. She doesn't know anything. We've been careful. Yeah, but we've been thorough. After this many trips out, it's plausible she'd have caught on. Doesn't take a detective after all. I shook my head. Still, I don't believe she knows. After all, if she had such definitive knowledge, she definitely would have gone to Murdoch sooner. That's just too big of an accusation. Ye considered this. Maybe. Yeah, you might be right about that. At the very least, she definitely doesn't have any hard evidence. That's usually what would matter. Usually? He shot a glance back at Murdoch's office. Murdoch's a fickle son of a bitch. Forgetful too. Forgetful of loyalty. Right now, Lara's in Murdoch's good graces. Speaking of his good graces, Lara's word is bound to hold a lot more weight. Even if she just had vague suspicions at this state, that might be enough to sway things. That can't be right. I'd hope not. But that's what my instincts are telling me. That we just deny. We hold the line together. It's 2 versus 1. With no evidence, she's not going to be able to do anything. I wish I had your confidence then. But if Murdoch's swayed by Lara, as he's wanted to do, then he could order a more official investigation, look into disappearance times, scan the ship for forensic evidence. We covered our traces, but only so well. Things could go bad. I had no response to that. Ye groaned. Even putting that aside, Lara's now got a real lead in the race for the headship. Murdoch could go any day, and he knows that. He might make some sort of declaration any second. Feels like if we look down, we'll see the bottom of the cliff. Right now we're holding on desperately to a rope, trying not to fall. But every second it holds our weight, the rope begins to fray. Only a matter of time before it gives way and snaps. Perhaps, in that case, we need to let go of the rope. And commit suicide. And jump to a nearby bluff. I see. Alright then. What's this bluff you're thinking of? Oh hey, look at that. Double meaning. Very clever. Did you think of that ahead of time? No, it just sort of happened. And it's not particularly relevant because what I'm suggesting is no bluff. Oh? Hey, no, let me be clear. I'm very happy if you come up with a good idea. Just a bit sad because, it would have been quite clever if it was a bluff you were suggesting. Well, I apologise for not making a suitably clever metaphor. Can I resume explaining the plan that will save our asses? Right. Sorry for derailing. It's simple. You made it abundantly clear why Lara is currently in good graces. She's made a lot of money. But Lara isn't the moneymaker. You are. You just need to prove that in a big gesture. Okay, I like it. I love it. Any details? Our stash house. The place we keep all our dirty money. Why don't you guys set up a scene there? It's currently being guarded by some of Lara's people. That's good. Make whatever happens look like their fault. I don't know and I don't care about the methods. You're the detail-oriented one, you mess with that. What I'm suggesting is you do something that causes the police to investigate the scene. When you get your contact, Seth, to discover the stash of dirty money. Have him do it discreetly, in a way that won't be a big deal. If other Duat members get wind that it was your contact who discovered the cash, they'll realise that you were behind the whole enterprise. Anyway, once the Duat's dirty money is discovered, have your police contact in charge of transporting the money to a more secure location. Have him choose the route. Along the route he chooses, set up an ambush for the armoured car. If you know when and where the truck like that's going to be set up, it doesn't take long to hold a successful ambush. Doubly so if the person driving the truck is in on it. In this ambush, you steal back, recover all the cash. Your contact will probably be disciplined for getting held up like that, but he'll have also found the money in the first place, so he should be fine. Then you deliver all the cash back to the Duats. In one move, you've basically transferred all the credit of all that cash, including the money Lara brought in, to you. You firmly establish how necessary you are to the Duats, but you're more necessary than Lara. If we can make that clear, then we can make it where if Lara becomes head, you walk, Murdoch can't appoint her head. Simple. I was talking far more than I should as thing, but I needed Yi to go for the plan. The whole time I explained it to him, he just watched me in silence. I had trouble reading his expression, and after I finished explaining, there was a moment of silence. Come on, go for it, Yi. Do the plan. You know you want to. Finally he spoke up. Huh. Interesting idea, Thing. Wouldn't have expected something like this from you. I gotta say, it's pretty risky. If it goes wrong, if it comes out I'm responsible, I'm gonna be in a whole heap of trouble. The type you can't recover from. It's certainly a dangerous play. He shifted back and forth as though physically weighing his options. Finally a smile passed across his face. Who am I kidding? I'm not really much of a gambler, but I'm sure as hell a soldier, and any good soldier knows that sometimes there are battles you've got to fight. Right now the war between us and Lara is up in the air. This is the sort of critical strike that's needed to shift the tides. Good thinking, Thing. Thank God. Gee, for fuck's sake, why do you always have to give me a minor heart attack every time we talk? Just accept the plan earlier next time. Regardless, it seemed like he was on board. Good. Coming here wasn't a waste after all. Thank you. To be honest, I wasn't sure if it was a good idea. It was just the best one I had. No, it's a pretty smart idea, all things considered. Could use a bit of refinement, but don't worry, that's what I'm for. This plan's pretty smart. But with this atmosphere, I'm worried. Marduk might make a decision any minute, honestly. So I say we gotta get this plan rolling, ASAP. I'm gonna start gathering up people we can use for this. Tell them what's up. Sounds good. He looked like he was about to turn around and walk away. However, we both paused. Approaching us was none other than Lara herself. Slightly surprisingly, she was not followed by any of her posse, but all the same she wore an unmistakably smug smile. Perhaps justifiably so. He grumbled under his breath. However, he stayed put as Lara approached. Hey guys, how's it going? Having fun over here by yourselves? Oh, just boatloads. Isn't that right, Thane? Indeed. I'm just raising the roof. Lara actually let out a chuckle at this. Yes, I'm definitely getting the festive mood from you two. Good to hear, good to hear. Okay, look, I'll just address the elephant in the room. I'm sorry, Lara. No? What for? You don't know? Nothing comes to mind, no. In that case, I take it back. Nothing to apologize for. Wow, okay. He's sorry for tying you up and trying to have you killed. Oh, that! I knew I was forgetting something. As was I. Thane's right, I'm sorry for that. Totally unprofessional of me, a real dick move on my part. Just, you know, Art said so. You understand. I definitely do. Water under the bridge. I'm sure if our positions were reversed, I would have done just the same thing. As am I. I shifted around uncomfortably. In reality, I wasn't all that uncomfortable with the tense atmospheres and false smiles, but Thane certainly was. Let's not linger on such gloomy subjects. It should be a fun time, a celebratory time. After all, I made the duets a bunch of money in one fell swoop. That means bonuses for everyone. Who could possibly not be excited about that? Not me, that's for sure. I'm indifferent. Oh? I don't do it for the money. That right? It isn't. This guy just likes saying things that makes him sound cool. Oh, I see. Well, he's right about that. You're very cool, Thane. I feel patronized. Lara chuckled again. Anyways, I know I'm in a good mood. Marduk's really happy when I brought in all that cash. Had a lot of nice things to say about me. Very nice. I might even make me the next leader of the duets. Ah, someone was making a lot of things more explicit. I looked to see how Yi would respond. That right? Good for you. Did he say that? In but so many words. So he didn't. Little thing called subtlety, Yi. I know it's not your strong suit. After all, you like to solve your problems with the end of a gun. Well, nice to know Marduk is happy. But I wouldn't rest on your laurels for too long, Lara. You never know what might happen. In this industry, fortunes can get reversed in the course of minutes. What's that supposed to mean? Tensions were steadily rising in the conversation as I was looking for an out. Luckily, I got one. Just not the type I was looking for. Fang walked out of Marduk's office, and then he called out, Hey, Thane! Marduk wants to talk to you. In private. Oh, would you look at that? Thane, it appears as if you're wanted. Oh, someone's in trouble. Are you in grade school? I know you are, but what am I? It doesn't work in that context. It made you mad, right? Seems to me it worked well enough. As the two squabbled amongst each other, I was just biting my tongue. Are you fucking serious? What now? Marduk really had to call me over now of all times? Alone? Give me a break. I didn't want to attend this meeting, for a number of reasons, but Fang had made the announcement publicly. If I didn't start heading to his office now, people would get suspicious. I couldn't afford that. There were more duets than ever. My only option was to go and have this meeting with Marduk, and to pray that nothing happened in there that would have him call out to the minor army standing here around here. After a couple of deep breaths, I started walking over to Marduk's office at a steady rate. No need to panic. I was Thane, a fearless robot. I met with Marduk every now and then. Nothing weird about this. Before I knew it, I found myself entering the office I'd only stepped foot into once before now. This time, I didn't have Yi and Lara to act as buffers. Even just sitting there, Marduk proved to be an intensely imposing figure. Well, no surprise there, I suppose. I'd already seen him in his natural state like this. Only last time I had buffers. No such luck this time. I'd have to stare down Marduk all on my own. That was fine. I just emulate Thane perfectly. I had a good download on him by now. Instead of saying anything to me as I entered, Marduk just nodded at me. I nodded back. Sit. He didn't need to tell me twice. I walked forward, circled around the couch and sat down. So, Thane. Marduk. It's been a while since we had a conversation. That's not true. We talked not long ago in this very room. I meant a private conversation, jackass. It's been too long since we talked one-on-one. I shrugged. Sorry. You've just been keeping me busy with duet work. I remember the last time I gave you a direct order. It was a while ago. Well, you've been keeping me busy via Yi's command. Marduk nodded to this. Apparently, in his eyes, this was an acceptable answer. Still, that was not a complete excuse. You have my private number, after all. A phone to call me on. Marduk's words confirmed a theory I'd had for a while. The old bastard referred to Thane's spare phone, likely was Marduk. The answer was kind of obvious from the beginning. I guess I was just overthinking things. Then again, this raised another question. but it was one I was pretty sure I had an answer for. True. Well then, I guess there hasn't been much to talk to you about. You keep yourself busy. I don't believe there's not been things you could discuss. Communication's a two-way street. When was the last time you called me? A slight smile crept onto Marduk's face. Fair enough. You had me there. That's it, I'm calling you over now, am I not? You are. And given your history, I have to assume it's not just a social visit. So then, what are we here to discuss? Marduk sighed. You always were clever, weren't you? You're right. I'm here to talk to you about Lara. Lara? I'll be blunt with you. What do you think of her? In what sense? Just give me a general impression of her. She is competent. She has the approval of many duet members, the disapproval of others. She does her job well enough, but she doesn't understand the true purpose of the duets. She has to think backwards. Oh? How so? She believes the duets should serve the city, not the other way around. Marduk's eyes wandered to the ceiling. Do you agree with it? I don't know what I agree with anymore. The older I get, the more sentimental I begin to feel. What would you classify Lara's strengths as? Let's cut to the chase. You're considering letting Lara succeed you for the duets. Impatient as ever, I say. Fine. You are correct. She seems like an acceptable choice. To be clear, I'm not so shallow a leader as to be swayed by this recent display of wealth. A lucky break that says nothing. No, this is a decision of mine I've been deliberating for some time. You might think I am foolish for not considering Yi. It is true he is a talented individual. I have been lucky to have him by my side for all these years. His insight, wisdom, and diligence is a large part of our continued success. However, his talents are not suited for the role of duet head. His disposition is more managerial. To be the duet head, you have to be a leader. This involves seeing a greater picture, being able to inspire your men, knowing what wars to fight. Lara, despite being a relative newcomer to our organization and being in an environment of prejudice against her, has won the approval of the majority of my men. Ultimately, I'm not the one who really decides who will succeed me. The duets will follow whoever commands their respect. If the duets follow Lara, then in my eyes that makes her the most worthy candidate. Is this decided? No, not quite. If it was, why would I be consulting with you? This is a tricky juncture. If my understanding of Thane was correct, I knew exactly how he'd respond to this situation. However, if I was mistaken, there was no time to be second-guessing myself. I'd gotten this far by believing in my skills. If the rational part of me still thought this the best course of action, then I should follow through on it. Consulting with me, huh? Come on, Marduk. That's not what this is. It isn't? Not really. After all, you should know damn well how I'd react to this news. You should know I'd never willingly rescind that which by all rights should be mine. Marduk just looked at me for a while. There was something sad in his eyes. Then he looked over to the window in the office. How did it come to this? I have an idea. Yeah, so do I. Marduk turned back to look at me. Look, Thane. No, that's not right. Vidar. Finally, on first name basis, are we? Look, you know the last thing I wanted was for things to come to this. Do you realize how difficult putting you in that mask was for me? I don't feel particularly difficult at the time. It's because I thought it was for the best. It was for the best. You needed to learn a lesson. But you know, I always intended for you to eventually inherit the duets. I still intend that. And yet, you're handing it off to Lara. She has earned it. But her time shall pass. You are young, younger than most in the duets. And you're already a senior officer. Give it a bit more time and certainly you shall be given the chance to fulfill your destiny. You simply need to wait. Learn a lesson. Yes. Rich, that. For once in my life I was trying to live up to your expectations. Follow your rules. See the bigger picture. Take control by myself. Rule with force. That's not... Marduk sighed once more. It was as though this conversation was taking a toll on him. I can appreciate your intent, but intent is not the only thing that matters. The consequences, the method, those are also important. And Vidar, you paid no mind to either. Oh, I paid mind alright. I just had a different idea of what Panthea should be. I guess I have a different idea. Vidar, listen. The duets have their place in Panthea. An important one I've explained many times. But this is a defined place. There are sections of the city we simply shouldn't go. Can't go. By our nature we must exist in the shadows. Strike out too far, and those powers will no longer tolerate us. They've spent centuries building the hierarchy that currently exists. Do you really think they would allow it to be toppled so easily? It sounds to me like you don't have the strength to achieve true dominance. Against what exists? Nobody does. Instead, I make inroads where I can, concessions where I must. Let me be clear, if I had it my way, we'd storm the entire city, knocking out the windows of every government building and corporate office. But we have to be realistic. This underground monopoly we've accrued is the best we can hope for. And to keep it, there is a balance in place. One that Aisha helps maintain. When you went off on your own with Gil, planning the whole assassination business, you almost undid that very precious balance. God only knows what would have happened had we not passed along the information to our police contact in time. Because of your half-baked scheme, Gil still rots in prison managing our jailhouse division. In comparison, I'd say you got off light. I understand your ambition, but going after Aisha was a step too far. Had that worked, you'd have severely provoked the chief of police. We make do with our methods, but the real reason we've been able to thrive is because the police force has decided not to crack down on us. That they've tactically accepted that our monopoly that keeps the peace is a better alternative to the gang warfare that used to cover the streets in blood. The moment we began assassinating politicians is the moment that grace is snatched away. That would have been useful information to have at the time. Instead, you keep all the cards close to your chest. You claim to lead the duets. Leading means giving us a unified vision, not making your own decisions and telling us how to act them out. Yes, you might have a point there. But, do you see why your plot could not be tolerated? You have to bear the risks and responsibilities that come with that, with the Thane mantle. Sure, I can understand that. What I can't understand is why you did what you did before passing me the mask. I wish I could understand it as well. Try. So this Murdoch could only hang his head. A small part of me worried if I was pushing too hard. But at this point I'd lost myself in the character, the mindset of Thane, or rather Vidar. I could only continue in this direction and see where it led me. After a moment Murdoch looked back at me. Vidar, you might not understand this, but to me the duets are my legacy. But not just the duets. You too are my legacy. Naturally, I always assumed you'd follow in my footsteps. A bit more monarchistic, sure, but I was okay with that. When you began acting out, misunderstanding what the duet spirit was, it cut me to my soul. Maybe it was my fault in the first place. Looking back, you probably joined far too early. It would have been better if your teen years were spent normally and you joined the duets after you become an adult. So I was just so angry that you couldn't follow simple directions. When you pulled that assassination shit, putting the entire duet family in jeopardy, costing me one of my best senior officers, I was outside of myself with rage. I could barely control myself. The knife was already in my hand and... Look, there's no good excuse. What I did was over the line. Hell, it'd still be over the line if I did it to Yi or Lara. I don't know what to say. An apology might be a place to start. I never did apologize, huh? You're right, you're owed that. I'm sorry, Vita. I truly am. Neither of us are good people, and both of us know that. And I don't really need your forgiveness, not really. I just hope that you will grow from all of this. Without a word, I just nodded. Wow, what a touching moment. Thank God I actually bullshitted my way through it. All I need to do now is begrudgingly accept Lara as the next head, but ask him to delay making it official a bit longer, and my work would be done. See, this is why we should talk more often. I wouldn't be opposed to it. You little shit. Can't give a straight answer when your life's on the line, huh? Fair enough. Murdoch scratched his neck and then it looked like he had an idea. That couldn't be good. You know, I've been talking with Thane the whole time, but that's not right. I want to talk to Vidar. And to understand. I understood, I just didn't want to. Take off the mask. We should finish this conversation looking eye to eye. Well, this was the risk in bringing the conversation to this topic. Should it be more cold? Now how was I going to get out of this? Murdoch may be old, but he was still a fighter. More to the point, behind me there's a room full of duet members. My identity getting exposed here would be a death sentence. I'd prefer not to. Excuse me? I just feel more comfortable in the mask. Alright. Is it because I almost felt bad about this tactic, but it's sort of the only option I had available? Yeah. That's not good. Look, I'm sure it's not that bad. It really is. No, it's not. And either way, you should learn to live with it. Maybe you could view it as a good thing. A mark of being a badass. There's nothing badass about it. Just take the mask off, would you? I held myself back from cursing. I really had the worst luck. Or maybe I was lucky for getting this far. Whatever. It was clear my time was up. Guess I had to put the backup plan into action. I really didn't like the line of play. Definitely not what I had intended. But life rarely can conform to our expectations. Rarer still our desires. If this is how Murdoch wanted it to be, I had only one choice. I'd have to show my face. I slowly stood up from the couch. All the while I began leaning forwards, closer to Murdoch. My right hand rose. It gripped onto my mask. No, Thane's mask. My other hand casually felt at my hip. I wasn't an idiot. I'd never enter enemy territory without a weapon. At this point I was gripping something with both my hands. Just say you had like reconstructive surgery because of the damage to your face, and you got, a new face. Like face off. As I stood close to Murdoch, without any more delay, I slowly lifted up the mask. I could feel the air hitting my face. Just like that, I was unmasked. I locked eyes with Murdoch. For a solitary second, he looked at me, processing. Then a moment of shock. was what I was counting on. My left hand gripping the knife I had brought shot out into the air, and then it stabbed down right at Marduk's heart. I expected a jolt on his part, some reaction, but I guess age caught us all. Without so much as a shift in his seat, the blade struck through and pierced his skin. I wasn't good enough at anatomy to know if I actually hit his heart. At the very least, however, I could tell that it was a mortal wound. Blood began to pour out of the gash. I kept the knife firmly in place, my fist clutching it. With my other hand, I prepared to promptly cover Marduk's mouth and continue stabbing him if he decided to start shouting out for backup. Instead, however, he just looked down at the knife in his chest. Then he looked back to me. Huh. So that's how it ends. Then, is my son... Yep. He was a duet member through and through. And by that I mean a murderous piece of shit. He tried to kill me, but he overestimated his skills somewhat. Him or me, you have to understand. Instead of responding to this, Marduk just looked down. There was a paleness to his face. That's that then. You know, I always knew I'd die like this. Suspected it at the very least. And I was fine with it. I made my peace with my death a long time ago. One of the occupational risks of it all. I knew I'd accept death when it came. But Vida, I was wrong. I shouldn't have kept him away from this until he was prepared. I should have kept him away from this period. They say the cruelest tragedy that can happen to a parent is to have their children die before them. In that case, maybe the humane thing to do would have been to stab you with the mask on. You probably prefer to think that Vida was killing you. Good thing then that I took the mask off. Marduk looked back up at me with a new anger in his eye. So you must be the rat that's been running around making a mess of this city. So you heard of me? That I did. You know, you're not going to get off easy when they catch you. Murdering the duet head? It's not grounds for execution. That's grounds for a torturous end. Yeah, you thugs sure like your torture, huh? Your son was sure good at it. Good thing that the duets won't catch me. Sure about that? There are more dangerous figures than you in this city. More dangerous figures than me. Trust me. The one thing that grants me peace in this death is knowing that your days are numbered. That right? I've been doing pretty well up until now. Just a matter of time before you roll poorly. It's not a matter of chance. You really are naive, aren't you? In everything in life, even skill-based things, you're betting on yourself. Betting on your ability to not make a mistake, to slip up. Nobody's a robot. Everybody, no matter how methodical, is prone to errors that can only be described as chance. That's why I know your death is inevitable. Because there's a chance you'll screw up, and you're not the type to stop. If a chance happens enough times, it's not chance, it's an inevitability. Believe me, I'm the last person you need to be advising about gambling. That right? Well then, can I hear some advice I'm sure you need to hear? Not particularly. And with that I pulled the knife out of Marduk and slashed it across his throat. He began hacking, blood pouring out of his throat, and in a few seconds he went limp. That was that. I'd killed Marduk. I took a few steps back, looking over my work. Well then, this certainly wasn't how I envisioned handling things. I knew I'd be bringing Marduk down, but to stab him with my own two hands? It was fine. At this point I didn't even feel guilty. He was a dangerous gang leader and it was practically self-defense. The only disturbing point was how much I enjoyed the process. That's probably not good. But I'd worry about that later. For now, I need to consider my next action. I was standing in the room of Marduk's dead body after all. What to do? I looked over to the window. It's a bit difficult from this side, but it should open. Maybe I could escape through there. After a bit of consideration, I decided against this option. If Thane didn't exit the room before long, people would begin to get antsy. They might check the office and find Marduk dead. If that happened too soon, that could get in the way of things. Alternatively, there was a much simpler option. If I left through the door, back through the way I came, there'd be nothing odd about that. People didn't like to bother Marduk. There was no telling when someone would go and check on him. With my method of escape decided, I began covering my tracks. I left the knife on the couch Marduk sat on. I put the mask back on. I grabbed a pillow and used it to wipe as much blood off my outfit as I could. Then I placed it back and turned it around. That was probably as good as it would get. Without a final look back to the corpse, I walked over to the door and left Marduk's office. Then I walked across the V-hall, hoping no one would call me over for anything else. Hoping nobody would notice the flecks of blood I hadn't completely managed to wipe away. Luckily, it appeared as though everyone was thoroughly absorbed in their own machinations. I was able to get across the building and out the exit with nobody batting an eye. There it was, Marduk dead. Not the plan for today, but I'd just have to work with it. I thought back to Thane, the real Thane, or Vidar as it were. Arguing through his eyes had made me look at his case in a way I hadn't before. Thinking about it, wasn't it a little sad? I mean, he died in his early 20s at that. Most of his life spent in the duets, raised by a monster of a father who permanently scarred his own son. Is it really any wonder that he ended up how he was? Nope. Nope, no matter how much I tried, I just couldn't get there. Couldn't find myself being sorry for the demented son of a gang leader. Oh well. Not like my sympathy one way or another would change things. The point was, I'd now killed both father and son. It would surely be fallout from this. But for now at least, one serpent had been slain. On to the next one. Bye-bye, Marduk. I'm a little sad to see him go like that. He seemed like my type. But hey, had to be done. Unintentionally or not. Had he caught our Thane right in their tracks. Hey, speaking of, it's been 3 scenes. Time to check back on that little bet between us. Now this is a bit of a tricky case, I must admit. But even still, I'm going to count what just happened with Marduk discovering Thane's true identity. I mean, he did die shortly after, but hey, nobody specified the discoverer had to be alive. And yeah, it was less discovering the identity and more Thane revealing themselves, but it still counts, damn it. Marduk was moments away from discovering it, on his own before Thane had to pull the bullshit reveal move. Jumping off the map to prevent your opponent from getting a kill is a coward's move, and I shan't abide it. Which means, you lose. Oh, you're so close too. I know you're probably mad about my ruling just there, but I stand by it. And since I'm, in charge, complaining is not going to get you very far. 0-2, huh? Just can't get Thane right, it seems. But all of that is in the past. We were beyond betting. We're in the endgame. Our dearest Thane, whoever they may be, has reckoned up quite the kill count. Vidar, Milo, Garni, Marduk. They've become a bona fide murderer. For what? What has driven them so far? Survival, perhaps, to a certain extent. You could excuse a scene or two with that explanation. At the start, sure. At this point, it's clearly more than that. Something is driving Thane. Sure seemed like Marduk had an inkling of an idea. And since you already know about the whole, Mercury thing, you probably have a decent idea yourself. Though I'm guessing you still don't quite have the full story. Well, one way to find out. You just have to keep going. And we got a new button. I don't know what this does, but for now, we're going to wrap this episode up. And we're going to hit that new button to see what it does in the next episode. I knew there'd be some kind of epilogue thing where it all culminates for some grand ending. So we're going to do that next time. This might be a long episode next time. Or it might be in parts, I don't really know. We'll see. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks again, Alfie, and I'll see you in the next episode.